You graduate, and then what happens?
Well, I got a great first job at one of the places I interned.
Yeah.
It was an amazing physical therapy company where it was a large company, but we felt like family.
Yeah.
We would go see surgeries, talk about, how can we get patients better. We knew each other's families. It was a very homely.
Yeah.
But then, we got bought out by another physical therapy company. I had a lot of documentation and paperwork to do. But
Mm.
really, it was one day when I was taking care of probably 5 or 6 patients in an hour and by myself, no assistants, no other PTs in the room, just a front desk signing people in. And when I looked over at one of my patients, she was slumped over and passed out, unresponsive and soaking wet.
Mm.
And I went over to her and, I took her vitals. She wasn't answering to her name. I took her vitals and it was 40 over 20 was her blood pressure. I like getting to know people. And with the physical therapy, it's not just about, oh, the knee pain. It's about why do you want the knee pain to go away? Are you got to play with your grandson? Are you going hiking, biking? It's the why that if I have so many people at once, I can't get into that why
Yeah.
because knowing the why will help them get better and prevent it from ever happening again.
Sure.
They couldn't pay for college
Yeah.
unless we took out loans. And so my mom said, "What? Who is the dean of the university?" And there's this thing that they say in Trinidad, if you want clean water, you got to go to the head of the fountain. She
Mhm.
said, call the dean of the university, make an appointment right now.
Did you know there's a technology that's actually an app on your phone that uses sound waves to tell your brain what you want your brain to do? We had a young man that was on a guest on our podcast, the Mike Litton Experience, who had a traumatic brain injury. He was sleeping 3 hours a night. He's using Newcalm now and he's sleeping more. Go to newcalm.com, Mike15 promo code. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. Mike is passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
Dr. Gina Williams, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. I'm super excited for our time together. And like we talked about before we hit record, everybody has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. So with your permission, we're going to start with where you were born, go up to today, and we want to talk about these amazing things that you're doing with physical therapy in the wellness space you've been in more than 20 years in New York. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you so much, Mike, for having me. It's a pleasure. So excited to be here. So, well, where do I
Well,
start? I
where
was
were you born?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York. My parents are Caribbean immigrants. They came
Oh,
here in the late 60s to America. I always asked them why. Did you listen to the radio about what's going on there? But there was more opportunity here and work. And so they came here and started working and, they built the life for us. But my parents, there's 3 of us, myself and my brothers. When we're born in New York, after 6 weeks to 2 months old, they ship us to the island of Trinidad and Tobago to live
ooh,
there and start school there for several years
wow.
till we're about 8 or 9 years old. They'll come for a week or 2 for whatever vacation they could get. Sometimes we'd come to New York for the summer instead of going to the reverse kind of, vacationing. They saw us when they could, and then they would work hard, get money to eventually buy a house, and then send for us. They call it sending for your children to come to New York. And, New York was definitely a different experience being in the Caribbean. And as a child, never having a key, never having to go outside, asked permission to go outside. With anyone, you just go outside after you eat breakfast and you're out in the wilderness, you play, you get dirty, you scrape your knee, you come back by dinner time, and then you have dinner. So when I came to New York, it was a little bit of a culture shock. First, to go to the park, there's a concrete park. Then your parents have to go with you to this park. You couldn't go by yourself. It's like, don't open the door to strangers. That wasn't a thing. We never locked our doors in Trinidad, or, even, the windows were open all the time and no bars on the window. So it's definitely different, especially the weather and even school. Trinidad is an English speaking country, but there's a dialect. And people who are in education or in newscasting, broadcasting, they speak British English.
Mhm.
So the Brooklyn accent was almost impossible for me to understand as a child. It was so fast and broken up differently. I would come home from school. My mom said, "How was school?" I said, "Okay," but I didn't understand what the teacher was saying, you know?
So at what age did they send for you guys? How old were
So
you when they sent for you?
for me, I was 7, so I was
Okay.
still pretty young. I started school, but they asked if I want to come, and I said, "Oh, sure." Big city, big lights. I love that. Mhm.
Who raised you in Trinidad?
So my mom had sisters, and so my aunts and uncles were there and
Oh,
cousins. In the island, 50 years old is a retired pensioner. Usually,
mhm.
your children are already grown and out the house, married with their own children.
Yes.
So they had, free time to take care of your little ones like us. And 50 is still very young and vibrant, and so it worked.
So they did that basically for an economic type advantage because basically it's expensive to live in New York, and they
Yes.
were busy trying to earn enough and scrape enough together to be able to buy a place.
Yeah.
Wow. So 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 obviously you have amazingly positive mer- memories of Trinidad, and then you moved to Brooklyn, and what an amazing culture shock, right? And you're all of 7 years old. Wow. So what was your favorite thing about growing up in Trinidad and your favorite thing about growing up in Brooklyn?
Trinidad, we like trips to nowhere. We'd fill the car with take a gas and drive to the countryside. We'd already pack our lunch and we just drive to someplace new and come back. And that was the activity. Was
Yeah.
sometimes we go to the beach, but it was just family time, just going someplace new. Very simple, didn't cost anything, just to take a gas, and we just talked and had fun with each other. And that was my greatest memory. Just keeping it simple. You don't have to spend 10 grand at Disney to have a good time. You could spend, 20 bucks in gas and have a great time as well.
And nothing regimented, right? It was just kind of
No.
let's just go, right?
Yeah,
This
not
is we
scheduled or
feel like going
planned.
for a drive or whatever, and
Yeah,
yeah.
this is the thing. If we pass by a new chicken spot, we're like, oh, let's try this.
Oh,
Nothing
wow.
planned, you know?
How
And so,
cool. I love that.
yeah, it felt really free, and
So
just,
then your whole life gets turned upside down. Right? Where they plan everything, like you said, the parks are concrete and there's bars on the windows. And you have to lock the window, you have to lock the doors, right?
yes, yeah.
Wow.
So different. I mean, I just, I didn't think positive or negative. I just thought that was
Yeah.
so different,
Yeah.
and I guess that this is what it was, and this is my new thing. And to answer your question about what did I like about, being in Brooklyn, it was just being with my mom and dad and my
Yeah.
brothers and having that, the primary, parents in the household and having that dynamic of my mom and dad with me. And then my cousins were also in the New York area as well. And so lots of like sleeping on the floor at grandma's house, convening, because you don't have enough beds for everyone, but just that everybody having the sleepover and just having fun with my first cousins was awesome.
So you made some amazing memories,
Yes.
right? So growing up, who was the most influential person to you?
There are a few. I'd say probably the first one would be my mom.
Yeah.
She came here 21. She didn't know much. She didn't graduate high school when she came to America. She
Mm.
started a trade, working as a hairdresser, but she had to get her GED.
Mhm.
And then she went to college while she was still
Wow.
having children. And so whenever she would come back from having one of us, she would double up on her credits and still graduate on time. And so that was quite remarkable, especially coming from, she didn't have a solid educational background beforehand. So it was very, very challenging for her, but she still did it.
Yeah. Wow, what a work ethic.
Yeah, yeah, I think
Sounds very
so.
determined, like she's got a
Yeah,
ton of tenacity,
yeah, she's 82 this month and she's still very determined with a lot of tenacity.
Well, tell her I said happy birthday, that's awesome.
I will.
82, that's so cool. So in high school, I'm assuming it's in Brooklyn, correct?
Yeah, Brooklyn High School, Clara
So
Barton
in
High
Brooklyn
School.
so in Brooklyn High School, did you have a favorite subject?
Ah. anything to do with biology and science. I always loved the human body. I had a teacher in high school who was a little out of the box. He did not say, well, we're doing chapter 1, this is chapter 2. He'd come with a physics question and say, we have to solve this mystery of why this happened, like putting a tuning fork inside a Bunsen burner and it curved one end, like figuring out why is that happening, and giving us the tools to be curious and find out the reason why, versus read and memorize these books and you'll get tested on that. So that really excited me about being able to just think on your own versus just memorizing things to do well in school.
We need more of that nowadays, by the way.
We do.
Right? Did you
Yes,
have a
but I don't
favorite
know if we're
teacher?
going that way yet.
Did you have a favorite teacher in high school?
um, I'd say that the gym teacher, he was another like out the box kind of guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you call it's classic Brooklyn gym teacher, short, out of shape. He looked a little like Danny DeVito, sounded like him. His wife looked like Danny
Oh
DeVito's
my
wife.
God.
And he would, actually, make jokes during gym class, if you made the shot, and he just made everything so fun and relaxed that you did no pressure that, you're a girl and, here comes the boys basketball team into your class and you can't throw a free throw, it felt really nice to just be a part of it.
Oh, that's cool. So at some point you graduate high school. Where do you go?
Well, I only signed up for one college, university, was Long Island University. I knew I was going to go to medical schools or do the medical route. So I signed up for pre-med. I think I was 17. And I went to the registrar's office and I was talking to one of the counselors, and he told me that there was a scholarship that my mom looked up and she found that there was a scholarship there. My perfect SAT score, my perfect grades, I qualified for a pre-med scholarship. And so we went in there, myself and my dad, and we spoke to one of the counselors, and the counselor said, well, you don't qualify for this if you want to do pre-med. If you want to do social work, you can get this, you can get this scholarship. And so my dad and I went home and we told mom, the guy said we don't qualify and I can't make it. If I want to do social work, I could, but I can't go to pre-med with, we needed the money to pay for college. They couldn't pay for college unless we took out loans. And so my mom said, what? Who is the dean of the university? And there's this thing that they say in Trinidad, if you want clean water, you got to go to the head of the fountain. She said, call the dean of the university, make an appointment right now and go see him. So my dad and I, picked up our papers and made the appointment, went to see the dean of the university. And Dean Chaves, God rest his soul, he looked at my paperwork and he looked up at me and my dad. He said, Gina, why aren't you in my school? And he walked me and my dad into the university bursar's office and registration office and signed me up himself, 100% scholarship for pre-med.
Wow.
Yeah, so there goes my mom again, her
That's
tenacity,
it.
determination,
That's
but
it.
that person, which I didn't realize was discriminating against us for whatever reason. And if we hadn't gone back, I would have lost that 100% 4-year free ride to a major university in New York.
Oh
And, and so thank God that I did that.
yeah, no kidding. Thank God for your mom.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah, give her a high five the next time you see her.
Yes.
Wow, how cool is that?
It was
Okay, so
amazing.
4 years in pre-med at Long Island. What was your favorite thing besides the fact that it was 100% scholarship, right? What was your favorite thing about Long Island?
Study abroad,
The
believe it or
school.
not. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So the study abroad. So within the bracket of pre-med biology, you had the freedom to take any class you wanted because I had 100, it was a percentage scholarship. It wasn't a dollar amount. So I
Wow.
double majored. I took every course I could. I did everything. And so
Yeah.
they had a lot of biology fieldwork study abroad. So I'd go to Southwest, Costa Rica, and, look, hiking, look up animals, inspect, the different types of temperatures and in different environments and research
Awesome.
about it. And it was so fun. So every chance I get to not be on school grounds, I signed up to travel on the university's dime to learn and experience a new place, a new culture, people, food. And I just had to write a small book about it, but I didn't care, I loved the learning aspect of it.
Yeah. That's so cool. Well, even the writing is learning, right?
Yeah, yes.
So after Long Island University, where do you go?
Well, then it's time to study for my MCATs, medical
Mhm.
school. All right, all the traveling is over. Let's get these MCATs out the way. And so it's a gap year, studying for my MCATs, figuring out what to do. I tried to find work, and I'd find temp jobs here or there, but I wanted to make some money in that gap year to save
Mhm.
something
Sure.
for grad school. And no person would hire me because when you look at my resume, it says, "Hey, I'm going to medical school. I'll probably leave your company in a year."
Yeah.
And who wants a team member who's not going to be there for longevity? So
Yeah.
and sometimes they're like, oh, you're overqualified, And so with that, I tried volunteering in different places, and I heard about Long Island University had a day seminar about physical therapy.
Hmm.
I had zero interest in learning about in physical therapy, being a therapist myself, but as a medical doctor, if I had
Mhm.
a patient who needed physical therapy, I want to
Mhm.
start learning about the other fields so I can refer and talk about it
Sure.
and reference them. So I
Yeah.
went for that day seminar of learning. And after that day, I said, this sounds so interesting. And I don't
Mhm.
have to give people needles and take blood, which is what I didn't like about being a medical doctor, a
Right.
pediatrician. And
Mhm.
so I said, well, in physical therapy, I don't have to take blood. So I volunteered at major hospitals in New York in the physical therapy department. In
Mhm.
that year, I couldn't find work. And
Wow.
every day I talk to patients and doctors and say, why are you a therapist? Or how are you doing in physical therapy? And do you like it? And I'd go home and say, did I have fun today? Did I like my work? Could I see myself doing this as my job? And
Mhm.
after that year, it was a yes, outstandingly. And I signed up at physical therapy school at LIU.
So you go to physical therapy school at LIU, and how long did that take?
It was 3 years of grad school torture plus
Wow.
internships. They worked us so hard.
Wow. Well,
A
that's good though.
B.
You learned from it, right?
Yes, a B grade was considered an F. So we always had the standard was high, but it was worth it.
So you kind of couldn't go home and complain about how hard you were working because your mother worked so hard, right? But you're right. She's
Well,
probably an
I did
example to live
say it
up
was
to.
I did say it was challenging, and it was, I was doing things, and when I she heard me over saying it to a cousin, "Oh, it was so hard." She said, I got off the phone, she said, "Why did you say it was so hard?" I said, "Well, it is." So you're right. She just
Right.
was like, I'm just telling the truth. It was hard.
Your mom is something, man.
Yes.
What a character. I just love
Yes.
her. So you graduate, did you graduate with a doctoral? Like, did you
Yes, a
graduate
doctorate of
wow,
physical
that's
therapy. Yes.
awesome. That's
Hmm.
awesome. So you do that at Long Island University, right?
Yes.
You graduate, and then what happens?
Well, I got a great first job at one of the places I interned.
Yeah,
It was an amazing physical therapy company where it was a large company, but we felt like family.
yeah,
We would go see surgeries, talk about, how can we get patients better.
mm,
We knew each other's families. It was very homely.
yeah,
But then, we got bought out by another physical therapy company, and they say, oh, things are not going to change much, but of course things changed completely drastically, and I decided that, maybe this wasn't the right fit for me. We had to see a lot of patients, in our day. I'd go home after a long day and not even know my name. I had a lot of documentation and paperwork to do. But
mm,
really, it was one day when I was taking care of probably 5 or 6 patients in an hour, and
mhm,
by myself, no assistants, no other PTs in the room, just a front desk signing people in. And when I looked over at one of my patients, she was slumped over and passed out, unresponsive and soaking wet.
mm,
And I went over to her, and, I took her vitals. She wasn't answering to her name. I took her vitals, and it was 40 over 20 was her blood pressure. And
oh
yeah,
my
that's why
goodness.
that's why I said in my mind. However, everybody huddled around me and they said, "Oh, what's her blood pressure?" And I didn't answer because I didn't want anybody else to panic. I
Right.
had, I yelled to the front desk, "Call 911." I started resuscitations right away. Was able to revive her by the time the ambulance came. But then when they took her in, I had to call her daughter
Mm,
and tell her daughter that under my care, her mom had fell ill.
mhm,
And even though I got her back, just the guilt of maybe what if I wasn't paying attention? What if this something happened? It was
mm,
very scary. So I knew that taking care of all those people at once wasn't the long term
yeah,
plan that I wanted for my physical therapy. Way of I wanted to help people,
yeah.
and so I then decided that, maybe I need to leave this job and figure out things for myself. I went to the senior VP and I said, I think I'm going to resign. And he said, oh, well, we'll give you more money, and I smiled and I said, I know this is the right reason because they think that money is the reason that I'm leaving. It's totally not. I got no other job lined up. I'm just quitting,
Yeah.
And so I resigned. And of course, I had money saved up, to have my bills on auto pay. And I decided to travel. I went to Europe. I have family in London and Spain. I visited them. I met strangers who now are friends. And it just really, did a lot of soul searching about what I should do. I eventually came back to New York and I wasn't looking for full-time work. I found an agency that was looking for a physical therapist, and I ended up signing up with a company in Connecticut it ended up being 5 years. It was a great job, exactly what I was looking for, but a lot less patient caseload. One or two patients at a time
Less
with
stress.
a lot of help, no stress. So I was then able to build my own practice with the free time that I had
Mhm.
because I was only doing about 3 days a week working there. And so I had a lot more time to then think about how do I want to have physical therapy look like for my patients.
So how old were you at this point?
So I was in my early 30s.
Okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense, in terms of the chronology. So, yeah. So how long were you traveling? Like you took
Not
kind of a,
long. Not
huh?
maybe about 3 or 4 months,
Yeah.
not long, but just long enough to just
Yeah.
stop, take a
Reset.
break. Yeah,
Yeah.
reset. Yeah.
Kind of de-stress, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's a big deal. And it's
Yeah.
gotta be, it's gotta be something that gives you pause when you see what stress does to people physically.
Oh, yes,
Like I
definitely.
had a health scare in October,
Mm.
and I woke up one day and I felt this feeling in my chest,
Uh-oh.
and it turned into shortness of breath. And I got to where I couldn't walk within a couple of days. I got to where I couldn't walk like 5 steps without being out of breath. I thought I had COVID.
Wow.
I really did. I thought I had COVID. And I turned 59. The day I turned 59 was a Wednesday. And I was really rough shape. And my wife was like, "What can I do?" And I said, "Go get me a COVID test from the store." I took it and I was positive, came back positive.
Oh, okay.
So I figured I've got COVID. I've
That's
had
what it is.
symptoms
Yeah.
now for 5 days. Couple more days, I'll be good. Couple more days later, Saturday rolls around and I'm worse.
Mm.
So I go to the urgent care, and I thought I was going there for a breathing treatment. I thought they were just going to give me a nebulizer and right,
Send you home.
yeah. And they said we need to call an ambulance
Well,
and have you go to the emergency room right now. Okay, so I go to the emergency room, and they start looking. Right, chest X-ray, run my blood, nothing. So they asked me. They said, "Are you allergic to contrast?" I don't know. Never had it
never
before.
had it. Yeah.
They
Oh
said, "Well,
boy.
we're going to do a CT scan with contrast." And so they took me in, did it, came back, and they said, "We found it. It's massive,
Oh,
and we're going to do everything we can tonight to save your life." Did you know there's an app that has no side effects that allows you to use sound waves to tell your brain what you want it to do? It's called newcalm.com, and it's amazing. It literally uses sound waves. If you want to tell your brain to go to sleep, if you want to tell your brain to recover, if you want to tell your brain to put you in peak physical state, if you want to tell your brain to focus, if you want to tell your brain to take a power nap, you can do all of these things and more with newcalm.com. Go to newcalm.com today, promo code Mike15. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go there today. It's not every day somebody says that to you,
no. Yeah.
right?
And yeah.
So they got me on the operating table. They went through a vein in my hip and went up into my arteries and pulled out the single largest blood clot in the history of the hospital.
Oh my
And
goodness.
this is Scripps Hospital. They've been around a very, very long time. They're world renowned, right?
And it had been days you were feeling that? My
Seven,
goodness. That
7. I
you're
put,
that's
I put,
unusual.
I put my body under enormous stress, especially my heart, right? The next day, the ICU doctor comes in and says, We just removed the biggest clot ever in the history of the hospital. You set a record. And
not a record you want to set.
exactly, right? Certainly wasn't one I was trying for. And they said, and your heart is incredibly strong. And immediately my wife said, it's the walking. Because I walk close to 100 miles a month.
Wow.
And I love it. You know, it gives me a chance to just be by myself and my time and right. And I listen to an audiobook or whatever. Right now I'm listening to the Bible on my walks. But everybody that I've showed this to that has this, I have a photo of the clot. Everybody that I've showed it to that has any medical background is like, there's no way you're walking this.
You're still alive.
Yeah, right. This was divine intervention.
Yeah.
So part of the thing that I believe God saved me for was to get the word out to people, men and women. If you have pressure on your chest, if you have shortness of breath, get to the urgent care. Don't do what I did. Don't wait all this time to go, right? Because it could have killed me, and it really should have, right?
Yeah, I've never heard anybody who said 7 days.
Yeah.
Usually within 34 to 48 hours, if you're not in a hospital, you were dead.
Yeah. And I thought it was COVID. I thought that because the first time I had COVID, it physically, I felt it attack my lungs. I felt it attacking it, them. And anyway, so yeah. So I want people to understand something. I learned two things from this. Number one, besides the fact that God's not done with me, right? I learned that if you have shortness of breath, you need to get into the urgent care or emergency room as quickly as you possibly can. The second thing that I learned was I had obstructive sleep apnea, which I already knew. I'd had it for 30 years. But in the ICU, so after the surgery, they had me on the table for 2 hours and 40 minutes. After the surgery, they take me to the ICU. I was in the ICU for a couple of days. They monitor everything in the ICU, oxygenation, everything, right? Well, I would go to sleep and the alarm would go off because my oxygen levels would drop to a level where the system was telling them to come in and start resuscitating me.
Jeez.
And I had put my body and my heart in particular through that torture for 30 years. So when I came out of the hospital, I told my parents about it, and it became a subject, right? So I'm now on a CPAP machine.
Nice.
And I'm getting rest. I'm actually getting rest. I used to wake up exhausted. I drank tons of coffee, right? I still drink coffee. I'm addicted, right? Can't help myself. But I'm way better than I was, and I'm getting real sleep now.
Wow.
So I want people to hear what happened so that they know, or if they know somebody, because I've said this to people now a few times since October, and I know that they have gone and been checked where they wouldn't have otherwise, but it was kind of a wake-up call. We lost a very good friend of mine at 52 a few months ago, and it really got everybody's attention. And it was a heart thing. It was heart failure. So anyway, so thank you for letting me share that with you. So you start your physical therapy practice, and that was how long ago now?
9 years ago.
Yeah, 9 years. So there are people that are listening to this that are thinking about starting their own business, right? And they're actually going to probably stay in the same industry they were in, like you, but they're starting their own. Can you talk for a second about the mindset, sort of what was going on and how you came about deciding to do this?
Well, there were two things at play. Being a little older, and wanted to have a family. Working for a physical therapy place that I work for, 10, 12 hours a day, 4 hours of paperwork daily is not conducive of being a mom and a wife and a family person if you have those hours of work. So I wanted to create a work life that was exactly what I love doing, physical therapy care, helping people, but have more flexible hours. And there's no other way to do that than to work for yourself.
Yeah.
And, throwing myself out there. I didn't think about what, some people ask, like, were you scared? I didn't think about being scared. I just thought about, I want to create some flexibility
Mhm.
in my work schedule. And two, because of that incident that happened to me where I was taking care of too many patients at a time, I wanted one-on-one care
Yeah.
where I could have this person's family member and be in charge of them, and they can have my full attention, and I can thoroughly help them when they're with me without any distraction of anything else, just me and them, and make it more personal, and actually help them get better. And meshing the two would just work. There were a lot of people looking for that kind of care, instead of the factory care of going to physical therapy, not sure if you're improving. Sometimes, you say, oh, do these exercises, and the therapist walks away. And then how do you know you're doing it right? And, are you seeing the improvements? And so I had such, I wanted to I like getting to know people. And with the physical therapy, it's not just about, oh, the knee pain. It's about, why do you want the knee pain to go away? Are you got to play with your grandson? Are you going hiking, biking? It's the why, that if I have so many people at once, I can't get into that why,
Yeah.
because knowing the why will help them get better and prevent it from ever happening again. And that's what I wanted.
So it's like a well-rounded approach.
Yeah.
So, did you start a family?
Yes, I have 3 kids, my husband and I, 2 girls, a 5 and 4-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old boy. So we're three kids. We're boom, 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 back to back. Yes.
So 2 girls and the youngest is a boy.
Yes.
So is he okay? Like, girls can be rough.
Well, no, well, I hear teen girls can be rough, so they're little. My 5-year-old runs a tight ship. She's a little miniature me. She's very organized, orderly. She's making up the beds in their room, cleaning
Oh,
up,
I love it.
organizing. And the middle one, she's a little bit of a wild child. I call her my unicorn dinosaur who likes to be upside down.
Uh-huh.
But the older one kind of keeps her in check. And Joshua, our little boy, he's he seems to be that he's going to be like the practical joke of the family. He likes to be funny. He'll do something and look at us to see, are you laughing? So I'm kind of getting that vibe. And he's so unusual. I mean, the girls, I'd say, oh, Eliza, don't do that. Why are you playing over there? Don't go in the bathroom. Joshua, he's in the bathroom, playing around with everything, sticking his hand in the toilet. It's like, no. And he's like, what do you mean, no? I want to play with this water. I'm like, no.
These girls will keep him in check. I
Yes,
guarantee it.
lucky to have 2 girls before him to be like, "What are you doing, boy?"
Yeah. What's your favorite thing about being a mom?
It really I'm a worker bee. I love to work, and I feel pride in working, and sometimes I don't have a limit. And
Mhm.
so having these little ones, they tell me, "Hey mom, we want you home at bedtime, dinner time so you can be with us." And that brings me back. It helps me find out, like, okay, this is what life's about.
Yeah.
I have these kids. I want to make sure that family is important, and so they keep me grounded and avoid me from overworking.
That's awesome. That's awesome. They're kind of a governor, right?
Yes,
Right?
yeah. Yeah, and
That's
I let
awesome.
them take charge, with that simple things like time spent, or let's go to the park, or let's read this book, or let's go to the art studio. Okay,
Yeah.
because I want to, like, similar to what I grew up with. It was just such simple things, nothing big, just the time spent was so valuable when I was a kid that I want to give my children time spent.
So are they getting a chance to spend time in Trinidad?
Oh, yes, they call it their other house, and, they say, "Oh, we have a pool." I'm like, "Shh, don't tell people what we have over there," they love it, and as soon as we get off the plane, they're in the backyard eating fruits off the trees, playing with the dogs. They love it. I love that they have this back and forth dual life, and they love the island, and they eat whatever everybody else eats. Sometimes, some kids like macaroni and cheese. My friend, she made like curry crab and
Ooh,
dumplings, which is an unusual thing for toddlers to eat. But I said, look, put it on a plate. They were at the kids' table, and they were eating the crab and biting it. I'm like, yes,
yeah.
do what the Romans do.
Yeah, you gotta love that. That is so cool. What a great way to grow up.
Yeah.
So, what is your favorite thing about owning mobility health?
My favorite thing is just helping people get better one person at a time. but also having an opportunity for other physical therapists like myself to have a flexible work-life balance.
Yeah.
My team members that come, one team member, May, she said, "Oh, my son's graduating, I'm going to take that time off." Yes, of course. There's like, for me, when I work with an employer, like I feel guilt about taking time off, and it's not like a doctor's appointment. So I feel like that guilt of I'm supposed to be working, but no, yeah, flexible, it is no, you're not, no obligation, just freedom to schedule your life around work, not work around your life is
Yeah.
what I like.
So if somebody's listening to this and they need physical therapy or they have questions for you, the phone number's right there over your shoulder, right?
Yes.
And also the website. So mobilityhealthpt.com.
Yes, mobilityhealthpt.com. They can find out more information about us and physical therapy care. We also do virtual physical therapy for many people in many states. And so it works very well. I've actually done the virtual therapy for 8 years before the pandemic happened. I now don't have to do a huge marketing tool because people understand virtual is now versus 8 years ago where we're like, how does that work? So it's worked very well for many.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yes, yeah, it works well.
That's awesome. So for people that are not watching us on YouTube, and by the way, if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, will you? So we don't say that enough. So the phone number is 212-499-4962.
Yes, that's correct.
212-499-4962. If for those of you that aren't watching us, right? Because they can't see over your shoulder. So we're also audio, right? So we're audio, podcast. And anywhere where you get podcasts, you can listen to us.
Yes, and I actually also have a podcast. It's called Health, Wealth, and Relationships,
Ooh.
Thriving in the Balancing Act, where I talk to busy professionals or business owners and talk about how to balance life, work, and professionals and coaches who give actionable tips come on and help us figure out how to do this and give us grace to realize everybody's not always balanced. There's an up and down, and figuring out what works best for you is important.
Yeah, I'm a Libra, and so balance is right.
The scale.
Everything's completely out of balance all the time, 7 days a week, 365, right? So yeah, nothing like it. Thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. This has been a lot of fun and really a fast 45 minutes. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you so much, Mike. A pleasure.
Can I ask you a question? Did you know that there's a technology that uses sound waves that'll tell your brain what to do? There literally is. It's called newcalm.com. It can tell your brain to heal, tell your brain to sleep, tell your brain to do all kinds of things. It can get you fired up. It can be a pre-workout. Newcalm.com. And the promo code is Mike15. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at the Mike Litton Experience.